Hey everybody, Brian from Bear Bull Traders here. It is the weekend, March 16th, and hope everyone's having a good weekend. This, of course, the weekend video. We'll go over what happened last week in the market and then take a look at some trades we did last week, as well as looking forward and seeing what trading opportunities we've got for this week. And this is a special weekend. You can check out my book on Amazon, How to Swing Trade. The e-version is free this weekend, so if you want to go over and check it out, you can download it for free. So let's get down and look at some charts here. All right, let's start out and take a look at what happened last week. Quick review. And you can see here we had CPI and PPI data that came out this week. It showed inflation rose more than really was expected by the market. And of course, this data pushed the yields up and put into question, of course, the Fed's willingness to cut rates anytime soon. So this last percentage that they're trying to hit down to get down to 2% inflation rate is proving to be a bit of a challenge here. Indexes, of course, ended up lower on the week as these inflation fears came back in, and seemed like the Fed maybe has this quite under control yet. So energy, and this of course isn't helping the Fed. Energy was the biggest gainer on the week. Oil was up, gasoline futures were up as well. So it's not helping, of course. This is a feed into inflation, of course. Real estate sector, biggest loser on the week. Of course, they're interest rate insensitive. So when rates go up, real estate doesn't do that well. So you can see here the 2-year and the 10-year significantly higher from Friday's close. That is a big move on the treasuries, both the 2-year and the 10-year. And of course, the dollar was strengthened as well. When yields go up, pretty much always the dollar strengthens, makes it more attractive. And Bitcoin pretty much flat, ended up flat on the week. We did hit 72,000 and started to pull back from there. So we're really no further ahead from the previous week, but certainly made a nice move higher and gave people an opportunity to take some profits, which was included me. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that was the week in review. All right, and before we continue on here, as always, I'd like to do a quick plug for my books on Amazon. There they are, How to Swing Trade, Profiting as an Active Trader, and my latest one, How to Trade Options. Of course, it was down in Las Vegas on Friday, doing a talk on trading options for a living. And good news for people that were waiting for the audio version of the How to Trade Options book. It was reviewed and approved on this week, Wednesday. So it is available in all formats, audio, and of course, hard copy or paper copy if you want to pick that up. But there's my books. They're all on Amazon and available for you to check out if you're interested. And now let's get down and look at some charts. So as always, let's go through the indexes first here, these indexes, and see how we finished out on the week. Always like to start out with the treasuries, and you can see here, looked like we were going to roll over last week. I was saying looks like we're trending down, which is good for the markets, but we had a big pop up this week on the 2-year, both the 2-year and the 10-year. As already mentioned, you can see here we're starting to move up higher on the latest data that we got, the CPI and PPI data. You can see here the 10-year looked like it was getting ready to roll over and had the big pop there on the week after that data came out. So again, this is not great for the bulls, and we'll see where it trends from there. Transports reacting accordingly. We kind of sold off here. We're back down into an area where we saw a lot of prior support here, and we may be heading back down to this 200-day moving average. Again, the transports sort of a canary in the coal mine for the overall economy here. And again, we're right down back to an area of prior support and resistance back here. Prior support, when you break through resistance, when you break through it, does become support. So now we're right back down at that level again. And we'll see what Powell has to say about his the future for rate cuts. I think that's going to depend on or make a difference as to where the market goes from here. The Dow, again, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I thought we were going to get into a period of consolidation after this big run up, and that's certainly what we're seeing right now here. We're kind of staying at this level, and there we are on the weekly, some levels in there. as you'll see in the last slide, just where support and resistance are. Qs, again, we've really had this nice big run up here, and now we're just sort of consolidating. We are in an area that we should see some support here. Otherwise, we may end up with a further correction on the Qs as well. But this sort of 430 level on the QQQs is relatively important. The SPY, again, sort of same story, had this nice ramp up, and now we're into a period of consolidation. Sort of the market's fully priced everything in that it's going to price in, and there isn't really a catalyst at this point that's going to move us higher. And on a weekly, you can kind of see here we're stalling out with some indecision candles as well. IWM, we had a nice push. It's really struggling to break out here. Tried to break out, and really we just pulled right back into this this trading range that we've seen for some time here. This 205 seems to be an area we have some challenges staying over, and 200 seems to be about an area where I would expect to support. There's a moving average there. We could really, if the interest rates continue to go up here, may break that moving average. IWM, again, struggling to break out here. Again, the VIX, we're kind of chopping along. We seem to be trending a little bit higher in this chop. But again, no big fear in the market, no huge fear anyway. The dollar very strong after we got CPI and PPI data and pushing yields up, and that's pretty much typical high correlation between yields and the dollar, the value of the dollar. And you can see here, Bitcoin really peaked out here and just pulled back pretty significantly over the last 3 days. And you can see here we got to a high of 73,800 and really overbought at that point. You can see here RSI really overbought. Big volume, which is a sort of sign of getting ready to capitulate, change direction. And that's certainly what we saw. Again, we are still in an uptrend on Bitcoin. This pullback could just be another pullback on the way to higher prices. So jury's out as to whether that will be the case. All right, so let's go over some stocks that I'm watching this week and some trades I did last week. I start out with Apple here, and I did a nice little options trade on Apple. Looked like it was putting in a bottom here last week, as I mentioned, around 170. And so I sold some 170 puts and kept the premium at the end of the week. We went out above 170 there. So that's a nice options trade that worked out well. And we'll look to do that again next week. Adobe is one that I am going to be watching for a trade next week. We had earnings come out on Thursday afternoon. After the close, you can see the reaction to that. So I'll be watching to see if it kind of holds this 480 level. I kind of suspect it'll come back up. So I'll look to sell some downside puts there on Adobe. And this is one of my favorite options trades. Cover that in my book on how to trade options. Don't generally trade going into the earnings, but I usually like to look at how the stock behaves after the earnings report. And we'll go over a few trades I did this week that highlight that as well. AMD, this 180 level is kind of an area where it looks like it's trying to hold here. We had a up day on Friday and on volume. And again, if it loses this 180 area, we could be back into another sort of trading range that we were in way back a couple months ago here. So watch that 180 level for support. We do have AI sort of conference coming up this week. NVIDIA is holding a big conference, so maybe AMD gets a bit of a sympathy bid on that one. Here's Boeing. Boeing looked like it was going to hold 180, so I did sell some downside puts. That was a bit of a, again, a short put sale just to keep the premium. I'm still short the calls that are up here. I'm just holding on to them, and they're looking very good right now. I don't think Boeing's going to get back up to 260 by August by any stretch of the imagination, so let those expire worthless. Dix, again, Dix reported last week. This is a typical setup that I use for a post-earnings trade. You can see here it topped out at 223 roughly. Friday, it opened where it went out roughly on Thursday and started to drop. So I think the tops has been put in around 220 or 225. So I'll be looking to possibly sell some upside options, knowing that there isn't a catalyst that's probably isn't going to push it much higher from here. So those will be weekly options. And again, you can buy call options above it to protect yourself. You can do a spread, or you can just short them naked, but there's a lot more risk involved in that. So be very careful if you are shorting options. Obviously the return cuts both ways. So here's Ethereum. I've been in since this breakout here. A really nice run up here, and I sold the rest of my position Wednesday, Thursday, and doing a bit of a pullback. I still think it has room to run higher. It's just really got quite extended here. So I'll be looking to maybe get back in around this 17 area where moving average, kind of where we consolidated and broke out from. So I'll be looking at getting back in, because you still got the ETF that's going to be coming out, number of ETFs that's going to be coming out later this year, probably early summer. And gold's kind of stuck in a range right now. A lot of central banks apparently have been buying gold, and this, of course, fiat currency sort of play. And I'd just be watching this 30-50 level on GDX. Could be an area where it breaks out from. The problem with gold right now is it struggles to go higher when the dollar is strong. But their correlation isn't 100%, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it there. Alphabet pointed this out a couple weeks ago, really oversold here, got back down into a range where it was expecting a bounce. I've been long it, and it looks like we did break out through some prior areas of support that would have become resistance. Now we're pulling back a bit, but I still think Alphabet, as being an AI play, still has room to run higher, and we've sort of put in a bottom here, so worth holding on to, or looking at getting in on a bit of a further pullback. Meta's really struggling. It broke out of this 480, 460 range, and has come up to this 500, 480 range. It's really struggling to break out, and we watch that 480 level. If it violates that, drops back, could be coming back into this trading range here, 460 to 480. Meta's still pretty good stock overall, I think, and still really great fundamentals, cash generating machine. Still long some short, some mid caps. So just holding on to that. If interest rates really go up on the mid caps, it's probably going to sell off, just like the small caps will, especially hard hit by higher interest rates. I've been selling Roku 6250 call puts, because it just seems to be holding the 60 level. Every time it dips down there, it comes back up, and did it again this week. I think that was the third week in a row I did that trade. Target, here's your typical target trade. I did the 175 shorts, the short calls. You could see here it popped up to 175, couldn't get through it. Following day, tried to move higher, couldn't do it. That's when I shorted the calls, and of course it just leaked off, and I just kept the premium. Okay, let's take a look at Tesla. Tesla's really been struggling here. EV space struggling. Tesla got some downgrades this week. 125, I think, was the number they mentioned. So Tesla really struggling. And you can see here, right at a pretty significant area of support. And just watch this 160 level. I would say possible to go lower there. And Williams-Sonoma, again, potential to short some calls up here. Again, we had a big earnings report, pretty positive earnings. Again, struggling to go higher now, and maybe this 290 to 300, although I didn't like the candle that we saw on Friday, kind of a bit of a reversing candle, even though it was down. So we'll keep an eye on that on Monday, possible for a trade there as well. Okay, so let's wrap things up here. Week of March 18th. What do we got to look forward to? There's your indexes and the levels we went out at on Friday with support and resistance levels. As far as economics event goes, I think this is probably the biggest thing you're going to see is Wednesday. Of course, we get the rate hike decision. There's going to be pretty much no change. It's pretty much what the market has factored in. But what will really cause some volatility is whatever Powell has to say about the sort of stalling in reduction in inflation on these last couple of numbers that we've seen. So this could cause some volatility in the markets. And we got some S&P flash PMIs on Thursday as well here. As far as earnings go, we do have some interesting ones coming up. We've got some Chinese stocks here. We've got Micron on Wednesday and Chewy. KBH, the home builder, that'll be interesting on Wednesday. And of course, Thursday's got some interesting retailers, Lululemon and Nike. And then, of course, FedEx as well on Thursday after the close. So that's it, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend. 8 o'clock, live on YouTube, BBT Community. We start our pre-market show and, of course, trading the market open 9:30 with our members. So take care, everyone. And don't forget to check out my book on Amazon that's free in the e-version this weekend, How to Swing Trade. Thanks, and talk to you later. Bye for now.